video, we're going to discuss how to prepare for class. And we specifically have 5 tips to help you prepare for class efficiently and to help you feel confident before walking into each of your classes. So our first tip is that we know you have a lot to do. In fact, you might feel like you have more to do than there is time. This means that a lot of people try to work ahead. And in theory, that's great. And to some extent, you have to read ahead. But listen closely to this first tip. This first tip is that we want you to prepare for class or to read your assigned cases as close to class as possible. A lot of students like to prepare or pre-read or read their homework over the weekend. That way they can walk into that week and focus on other things. But the unfortunate reality of that is that you're assigned so much to read and your professors like details that when you pre-read, for instance, over the weekend, it often requires you to look back over your assigned reading or notes again before class, which really means you're doing the work twice, and that is simply not efficient. So if at all possible, try to read and prepare for class as close in time to your class as possible. So maybe you do it the night before, maybe you do it the morning before, or the few hours before class, depending upon your class schedule. So that's our first tip. Prepare for class and read your cases as close to class as possible. Our second tip is that prior to diving into your reading and opening up that case book, try to review case briefs first. A lot of people feel like this is cheating or they feel weird about it, but don't. Reading a case brief is simply being efficient. And let me tell you why. Reading a case brief gives you all of the important information about the cases that you're assigned to read. This allows you to then get into your case book, and now you know what you're looking for. Now you know why the case is important. Now you know what the rule is and what the holding is and why the court reached that decision. You're going to be able to get through your assigned reading twice as fast. So where do you get these case briefs from? There are supplements out there. Try to get a case brief supplement that is keyed to your case book. So in other words, you're looking for your author and you're looking for the correct edition. Now, if you can't find something that matches up, you can always resort to the internet. Our third tip to help you prepare for class is that when you're reviewing your cases, you should try to book brief them. So some people have this habit of briefing every single case that they're assigned to read from day one of law school all the way to the end. And in our opinion, that is just a waste of time. Instead, you should book brief. Book briefing is as it sounds. Instead of pulling all the information out of your book and putting it on note paper or your computer screen, instead write it in your casebook itself. So in the margin, write something like rule, facts, holding. Underline that information if it's helpful. Some people like to book brief by using a highlighting system. So they use a yellow highlighter for the rule, a blue highlighter for reasoning and the like. Do whatever works for you. The reason book briefing is helpful is because, first of all, it's going to save you time than taking all this information and committing it to paper. So that's the big first reason we really encourage book briefing. The other reason is when you book brief, it makes it easier for you to follow along in class, especially if your professor likes to ask a lot of questions about the cases. You'll have your casebook in front of you with that book brief and that highlighting or those notes in the margin. Additionally, depending upon the types of questions your professor likes to ask in class, many like to focus on the little details of cases, which means you have to open up your casebook anyways in order to follow along or answer those questions accurately. So instead of having notes on a piece of paper that aren't helpful and still having to look in your book, you just have your book and all of your notes in there. Our fourth tip to help you prepare for class is that you should pay very close attention in class. Specifically, pay close attention to how professors are calling on students and the types of questions they ask when they do. So let's tackle the how they call on students. Some professors are random. They just randomly pick on people. Some people use like popsicle sticks where they have students' names on each stick. Some professors just go up and down the rows. Some work in alphabetical order. Every professor has a slightly different approach, but once you figure out what that is, it can help you feel better and a little bit more confident going into class. This way, if you have any indication that you're on call, you can prepare accordingly and again, feel better about that. And if you know you're not on call, you can spend your time doing something else. Now, the other half of this is paying attention to the types of questions that they like to ask. Some professors focus on cases and the details of cases. So if you know you're on call or you're preparing for that class, prepare accordingly. Other professors seem to not care about cases at all, and instead they expect you to extract that rule and they want to talk about these hypotheticals that they make up. So again, understanding the types of questions that they ask can also help you prepare for class and feel confident. Our fifth and final tip to help you prepare for class is, if it's necessary, review a supplement ahead of time. If you're struggling to get the big picture and you really don't know what you're supposed to be getting out of class or where you're at with things, this can be very helpful. It not only can be enlightening and give you some guidance, but it can make you more comfortable going into class because you'll have simply a better idea about what is going on and you'll feel more prepared to participate in the event you're called on. So one very popular supplement book is Examples and Explanations. So you could use something like that. If you can't get your hands on something like that, you could also see if there is someone who's taken your class ahead of you and maybe they have an outline that you can follow along with. This way you can see where the class is going and what you're supposed to be getting from it. This is not always necessary depending upon how your professor is focusing on things in class or your comfort level with it. But if you do find that you're struggling, this supplement or getting help in someone else's notes can sometimes go a long way. So we hope that you found these 5 tips helpful in preparing for class.